Hello, everybody, and welcome back once more to Anime Yay or Nay. I am TheOutbackAl.
I'm Yin&Jung.
And I'm NV Jitters.
And we're back with some more of our DC animated universe stuff. This time we did Static Shock. When is this coming out? Like Monday, right before Christmas, and it does include one of the few Christmas episodes that happened in this universe, so that kind of works out.
That made me happy.
Yeah.
There you go.
Who's seen this before? I know I watched this sporadically here and there throughout when I was watching like Kids WB during childhood and that. But have you guys seen this one at all?
No.
So where do we want to get started here? What was your guys' initial impressions of this, I guess?
I really liked it. It wasn't what I expected. I think I didn't know that it was a little bit more recent. I think I had thought it was older than it was.
It is 24 years old at this point.
I mean, it's still old, but I think I thought it was like closer to Superman and Batman the Animated Series. Like, I didn't think I knew it was like as recent in comparison. But I guess Static Shock as a character isn't that old when you compare him to a lot of characters from the DC universe.
He's 1993, I think, was when he made his comic books debut.
Yeah, so I guess I thought it was more like from the mid-90s or something, the show. So it was like the animation and stuff was like a bit different than what I expected from a DC show. I think I did expect the other type of animation, but it still looked good. It was really, I think also like darker than I anticipated. Like they had episodes about, homelessness and racism and gangs and, it went into a lot of like important themes, especially for a kid's show. You don't see that very often. So I thought that was really very interesting. I think as an adult, you can also get a lot out of watching it. And as a kid, I imagine it opened people's eyes a lot and exposed kids to a lot of good lessons and things like that. But I wasn't one of those kids because, like I said, I didn't watch it. But I feel like it is actually a good show for kids. I think nowadays a lot of shows shy away from talking about important topics because they're afraid of, like, I don't know what people are afraid of. But I feel like in the past they actually like touched on those things, which I actually think was good to show kids what life is like, So I liked that aspect of it, and I liked the characters. I liked his little family. I thought they were very realistic and like fun characters to follow, like his sister and his dad. Like the characters all had good like chemistry and felt like they would be like real friends or like real family and things like that. So I liked like the dialogue and how the characters interact. And I liked the main character. I liked Static himself. I think he was fun. He kind of has that like Spider-Man personality a little bit that's fun to follow. So I never knew too much about him or his powers. So I was like, I don't know, his powers seem almost unlimited to me. Because I guess he can control electrical currents or something, which is wild because like there are electrical currents in people's brains and stuff like that. So it's like, could he mind control people if he wanted to? I don't know. Like he seems almost like he could be all powerful if he wanted to be, which is crazy to me.
I think there are versions later on in the comics that include how powerful his powers can get, and I think that is one of them. But like I need to like really relook at some of the issues to see that.
I think I always thought he could just like zap things, like I didn't know he could do all this.
I mean, everyone starts somewhere. Magneto couldn't pull satellites out of the sky when he first started with his powers.
No, true. But I mean, he could do a lot just day one that I didn't know he could do at all. I think I'm not as familiar with the character, so.
Yeah, he pretty much was like, he literally did his first crime stop 2 days after the Big Bang accident. I was like, wow, that was quick.
He was pretty good, yeah. So, and he got his cool outfit and stuff, but it was like realistic enough, his choice of like superhero outfit and stuff, which is cool. Like stuff you can find in the closet and everything.
Yeah,
but I don't know how he found some of those things in the closet.
I think most of that probably was just in his closet. I think the only thing that he probably had to like maybe modify a little bit was like maybe the goggles and like adding the lightning decal onto the shirt
and the whole mask.
Well, I mean that's what I said. It's kind of like a headband and a set of goggles.
Oh, it's not like a mask? I don't know why I thought.
Oh wait, no, it is a mask.
Yeah,
You can make a mask.
I guess maybe
easily.
he took fabric and made the mask.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a cool look and everything. So I don't know. I really liked this show. I thought it was interesting. I had never really watched it before. I probably saw snippets as a kid, but nothing really major. So it was cool to watch it now.
Yeah, I'm pretty much along the same lines as you. I did like the show a lot, and I did have fun with it. I was thinking, watching it, especially after the first episode, I'm thinking this is both extremely dated and extremely relevant at the same time. It's dated because a lot of the lingo and the fashion was of the 2000s, like the early 2000s. I remember people talking like that. Granted, I was in elementary school, but I did remember hearing some kids later on talking like that. And
I don't know. I might wonder if some of that fashion's back a little bit.
It might have circled back.
I'm not first.
I mean, the 90s was cool in the 2010s, so maybe the 2000s are coming back in the 2020s. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe.
But what Yin was saying about, some of the social messaging of the show, especially the famous or infamous racism episode, depending on how you look at it, that was, that's something you don't normally hear talk about in kids' cartoons, at least in Western countries. So yeah, that was a good message. And overall, it is lighter in tone. There is seriousness, but there's also, I think, significantly lighter in tone than the 3 other shows we watched too. So I think it does a nice balance, because it is a 15-year-old or a 14-year-old, fighting crime. So it can't be dark and broody all the time. Otherwise, you turn into Terry McGinnis, which, I mean, I like Terry, but you can't have that all the time.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. Like, this actually, as far as, like, we watched 4 shows, and there was, like, this sort of continuing thing of you kind of had a darker show, then a lighter show, then a darker show, then a lighter show, and they kind of, like, this, weirdly enough, to me, kind of coincides a little bit of, like, the tone of, like, Superman, the animated series, where it's a little lighter, it's a little more, I think the number one thing I would call it is hopeful and optimistic about things, which I think is good for a character like Virgil and Static and all that, because he is a kid. He is, like, growing up and dealing with not only the added problems of powers and a bunch of other things and, like, villains and stuff, but, like, also just the what it's like to just be a kid in, like, the town that he lives in, and dealing with the issues that, honestly, people in the real world deal with. But he also keeps, like, this very hopeful, optimistic attitude. He's a very positive character, and I think that's probably key to me of, like, why I like him so much, is that no matter what seems to be happening to him, he's going to try to make the best out of it. Which, like, yeah, other characters like Batman and Terry McGinnis from Batman Beyond, they do try to make the best of a lot of things, but a lot of times they are doing things because they're like, things are going to be bad unless I do something. And there is that in this situation because, Static is intervening when villains show up in that. But it's less of like coming from a pessimistic place of things are going to be bad and I have to make them better. And it's more of a things could be better if I help them along kind of way. And it's a subtle difference, but I think it's an important difference, especially for like the type of character that he is. Which, if I'm remembering correctly from what I've read about the comics and that, he was supposed to be sort of a modern interpretation of Spider-Man, because Spider-Man had come out in the 60s, about 30 years beforehand, so they kind of wanted a more modern lens for retelling of the origin story. But also, from a different perspective of, like, he was an African-American kid, he had different powers, these different sort of, like, social situations that were happening for him. And I think that was good, and I'm glad that this character remained as popular as he's been since the show came out, because this was one of the more popular ones that they had, at least viewership wise, I think. Because Batman originally aired on Fox, and they did some reruns on Kids WB. Superman was on Kids WB in the New Adventures of Batman, and then Batman Beyond was also on there. But I think Static actually had some of the best ratings for them, which explains why he got 4 seasons while the other ones only got 3. And then everything moved to Cartoon Network for Justice League, but that's for a later date. Yeah, so let me take a look here, see what did we... let me get up the episode list that we had.
I mean, the pilot alone was crazy because it starts off with Virgil basically forced to join a gang. Like, that's kind of a way to start out. It's like, oh yeah, even before he becomes a superhero, oh yeah, join my gang for protection to avoid being targeted by the head of the other gang. It's like,
yeah,
damn, we're going there already.
I mean,
it happens.
Nothing for nothing. We've been saying, like, the entire month, it feels like, wow, they really, like, were pushing the limits of what you could do for, like, a kid's show, and, like, that kind of thing. Because, like, we talked about, oh, Batman had drugs, but, like, by today's standards, that's not a whole lot. Superman had an execution. Batman Beyond went even further with, like, starting to deal with, like, situations that kids were dealing with. And now this one's like, no, we're not going to shy away from everything. Here's everything on the table. And admittedly, I think I did pick some more episodes that dealt with that. There are a lot of lighter episodes that don't deal with as much issues, but I think this was one of the elements of the series that really kept it, like, alive in a lot of people's conscience, because it was really talking about a lot of stuff.
And they even say, too, that, Virgil's mother died in a shooting from basically they don't come out and say it, but it's basically their version of the Rodney King riots from LA from back in the early 90s. So that's, Yeah, that was, I was like, wow, they really went there.
I mean, this is based, again, the character came out in 93, so a lot of that was very prevalent at the time. So we watched Shock to the System, which is the first episode. Getting the powers, kind of learning about the sort of town and, like, the world that he's living in and some of the struggles that he's just having day to day. And then let's stack powers on top of that. Sons of the Fathers, which is about his best friend's dad is a racist. It's like, we're going to have that right away in this series, and just kind of like, hey, let's just talk about it. It's not great, but it exists in this world, and we gotta learn ways of dealing with this kind of thing. Bent Out of Shape, which is not the introduction of Rubber Band Man, but was one of the episodes that sort of, he actually has an arc throughout the show about going from being a criminal to redemption and becoming a hero who works alongside Static. So that's kind of the start of his journey back to redemption. Big Leagues, I had to include a Batman episode. We didn't get to for Superman, because it was just too much time, but it's a nice introduction to the New Adventures of Batman version of him that was updated. So that
was Tim Drake, right?
Yeah,
that was Tim's Robin, right?
Yeah. Frozen Out, which is the Christmas episode that also deals with mental illness and homelessness. Again,
I felt so bad for her.
Oh my god,
sad.
Yeah, like, just what characters, like, just has everything going against them in the world. Just, yeah. Bad Stretch, which part of the Rubber Band Man story. Static in Africa, where I wanted to include some later episodes because he has a redesign, which I actually like his new costume in that. And Static in Africa is a fun one because it also includes him kind of like traveling the world, meeting other superheroes, some stuff like that. And then Flashback, where he has a chance to save his own mother from dying.
Yeah.
Which is, that's a big one. A lot of these I picked out for, you look online, these are probably said to be some of the better episodes, probably because of, like, a lot of the issues that they deal with and stuff like that. So that was part of the reason that I picked them out. I probably could have picked a couple that were maybe didn't have as much to do with, hey, let's talk about this really, really heavy subject. And
I'm glad you did. I enjoyed all these episodes.
Yeah, nothing for nothing.
It was really good. Really good storytelling.
I think this show did a really good job of showing a lot of these things. And yes, it should be said that it's still a 22-minute show every episode, so it's like, are we going to be able to get into everything? No. Is it still going to be one of those situations of, like, oh, after 22 minutes of screen time, we were able to solve racism for this one guy? Is it entirely realistic? No. But I do like, it's also is a show that has a lot to do with, like, hope and optimism and trying to create a better tomorrow through your actions today. And I think it's good, and it's a good message, even if it's maybe sometimes a little unrealistic. I don't know that that's a bad thing. I think sometimes, especially for a show, it's better to be optimistic than realistic. Maybe. Especially for a kid's show. And for a kid's show as part of a series that's been very dark up to this point. Of, like, woof.
Yeah. I mean, even the father, Robert, I mean, he runs the community center, and he could easily be the stereotypical dad who lost his wife, is negligent to his kids, doesn't understand his sons and his daughter, but he does his best to try to understand Virgil. And during the flashback episode, he literally, says, hey, to his older sister, hey, you had a longer time with your mom than him, so it probably hurts him a lot more because of that. And it's like, that's a really nice, that's an interesting way to take it. It's like, yeah, you don't often you deal with grief differently, especially the more or less you have with a person. So I kind of liked how he tried to understand both of his kids as best as he could, as a single dad.
Yeah, and we had only like 2 or 3 episodes that actually like really included him as a prominent figure. He is a prominent figure throughout the series, and I think later on, eventually, he actually finds out that Virgil is static and helps support him through that as well. I don't think the sister ever finds out because it's just funny, but
that's crazy to me.
I mean, to be fair, when the dad found out and they were talking about it, then the sister comes in and she's like, my car got destroyed in that fight that Static was with. I hate him so much. And he's like, we're going to wait on telling your sister for maybe a week.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love first off, great dad, great character for that. I'm going to put him up there with Ma and Pa Kent as just good old parents to have in your show, positive role models and teaching your kids good values and stuff like that. But I think it kind of comes to this sort of like, at least because he's prominent in the Sons of Fathers thing, and he's well aware that Richie's dad is a racist, and then his son goes missing. And despite how he feels about the man, he's like, I'm going to help you find your son. Because this has nothing to do with you and me at this point. This has everything to do with this kid's possibly in trouble in some way, and we need to do something about it. And
yeah.
There is a philosophy, and you'd probably be able to maybe know this or articulate it better because I know you've read some more of those things. But it's something along the lines of you can't control how the world is to you, but you can control your reaction to it. And I think he kind of is living that philosophy of especially as a social worker, he can't control the horrible things that are happening in the world. But he can control how he reacts to it and how he chooses to help people go through those things. I think that's really good. And that, again, Mom, Pa Kent instilled good values into Clark, and thus he became Superman because that's the extension of those values. I feel like Robert instilled good values into Virgil, and Virgil went on to do good things with those. So.
And even that same episode, dealing with the racism, they also talk about, how people that are homeless, they're not necessarily bad people.
Yeah.
They're down on their luck. They're got bad financial situations. A lot of them are young kids or young adults that just got fucked up by society. And, well, I mean, if that's not prevalent to today's society, I don't know what is.
Oh, yeah.
We deal with that all the time. So, I mean... And even later on in the Christmas episode, you deal with granted, it's exaggerated because she's got ice powers, but you deal with a young girl who came from an abusive home, who was left abandoned, and she's got mental issues, and she's homeless. It's that happens in real life.
Oh, yeah.
It's just, we're adding superpowers because, we don't want to make it more exaggerated, but still, it's a interesting allegory.
Well, I mean, yeah, I think that's the main thing is that the powers are a reflection of the life that she's that she's kind of been forced into at this point. She was left out in the cold, and thus she has become the cold that people are left in. And again, it is another one of those episodes where it's we basically had to solve this in 22 minutes, which it's a much larger issue. And I think even in the episode, they're kind of they get her to start the journey to get help and sort of get to a better situation, but it's this is going to be a continuing thing for her. I don't know that she comes back in a later episode or anything like that, but I mean, yeah, she's probably going to be dealing with a lot of this for the rest of her life, and that is very sad, but it's important and it's good that she started getting help.
And even at the end of the episode where they have the interfaith service where I mean, number one, it's nice to see. I'm so used to anime where the Catholic priests are villains, so it's nice to see a nice Catholic priest who's actually, genuinely concerned about his community, and then his message at the end of the episode. It's we may believe in different things, but we all are supposed to have a common goal of helping others. And I was you know what? As cheesy as it is, we kind of need to hear this in today's society, in today's world.
Yeah, no, I like that. I'm trying to think. The few that are a little more, I really only included one episode that didn't deal with some heavier subject matter, and I think that was the Big Leagues one, where it's just, hey, Batman's here for an episode.
Yeah, yeah, I get it. They wanted to have, Batman crossover to establish this extended universe. But, like, if you're the Joker, okay, you're bored in Gotham City. Your next step is to go to Dakota City, not Bloodhaven or where Flash is at, Central City. Like, why Dakota?
I think, primarily Dakota had, like, the sudden explosion, like the Big Bang thing, and there was a sudden plethora of young people with meta-human powers. And I think it was just like, well, yeah, there's no establishment here of vigilantes or organized crime or anything. Like, it's just kind of just, these people are just running wild a little bit with these powers. I can take care of that, and I don't have to muscle my way in past Lex Luthor or someone else from a more established, like, superhero town. And especially when most of them were kids, very impressionable. I'm trying to think. There's very few, like, adults with superpowers in this. There are a number of adult villains here and there, but a lot of them tend to use technology a little bit more. I know Alpha Corporation or Alpha Industries or something, which was it's mentioned in one episode, but I think they were there as a running storyline for, like, some of the stuff that had to do with, like, the chemicals and the gas that was involved in giving everyone powers and stuff. And I think there is like a corporate corruption storyline somewhere in there. So they covered some stuff like that. But again, that's a little bit more of a longer running thing that they weren't going to be able to fit into just one episode. But yeah. I think later on they also.
There's Ebon, the main villain. He's an adult, and he leads the main metahuman Big Bang group.
I mean, adult. He's like in his 20s, I think. He's not
an adult.
He is an adult, but he's like when you're like looking at it, it's like. And I think maybe this is a reflection of, like, the idea of, like, gang life. It's like, you're not going to be a gang member at 40 kind of thing. Everyone's still very young because you don't live long is the...
Yeah.
I mean, that's the cautionary tale, I guess. But, like...
And I'm not going to lie. I imagine he's a different person, but I thought he was going to be... Maybe because we saw these episodes out of order, but, like, I thought he was going to be the guy that was wanted to have Virgil in his gang. I thought that would be him, but I guess it's a different guy.
Yeah, I think it was a different guy. Yeah,
because I'm on Wikipedia. It's Ivan Evans is his name, and he's the brother of
Adam Evans, Rubber Band Man. Yeah. I skipped around a little bit. For the most part, these I think were in for the most part order as far as, like, release and whatnot, but we skipped a bunch of episodes in between here and there just to get to, like, some of the really meaty episodes.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm trying to think if I specifically remember some more of the episodes that included him. Oof, now I'm really, like, going through and trying to, like, remember a lot of these episodes, and some of them mash together and some of them don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, how did you like the rest of the main characters, like Richie, who becomes a sidekick later on, I guess?
I had my opinions about that.
I mean, do you want to go ahead?
And, like, I like Richie. I think he was a good character, but I don't know why they made him a superhero later. Like,
I actually know the answer to that.
Okay.
I looked up an article. Apparently, they ran out of ideas on how to make him be the tech support. So they were actually going to cut him in the third season when they did the redesign. But then the creators were like, well, what if we made him a sidekick and make him go into the field? And so that's why he became, his sidekick.
So it's just desperation to keep the character around.
Yes, because apparently Phil Lamar and James Marsden were, like, had such a good connection in the studio working that they didn't want to break him up.
I could see that.
I think that's fair. I liked him. Like, I like his character. I just think it was silly that he's, like, a super genius now and has it's just like...
He's like... discount. He's like dollar store Iron Man.
Yeah, like, why are we doing this? I don't know. But now I do understand, like, if that was the only way to keep the character, because, like, obviously he's a fun character that bounces off of Virgil well.
Yeah.
So I get it, I guess, but it just bothered me. I'm just like...
And apparently they said that because the Big Bang gas affected the whole Dakota City, not just the blast area, apparently the gas affected him to where he got basically genius level intellect.
Yeah, I think
it's like the fact that it was so belated, though. It's like, that they did not have that in mind to begin with.
Yeah, they did. And I think whenever I do kind of remember the episode where he got his, like, super genius stuff, they were kind of like, and this is not in the episode with a Big Bang in it, unfortunately, but he said something like, "Oh yeah, didn't you came to see me after the thing, and there were like the gas, like you got hit directly, but like your clothes had like the fumes and stuff coming off them probably, and so I got a smaller dose, so it was like latent or something." But I mean, there's other people who like got hit right there and didn't develop their powers until like a year later, like the time travel girl. But yeah, it. I don't know. Yeah, sometimes you just have that where it's like, yeah, you got to kind of go on the fly a little bit as you get into later seasons and stuff.
And speaking of Phil Lamar and James Marsden, I want to, obviously the whole voice cast was great, but like Phil Lamar, I mean, obviously Phil Lamar is like one of the greatest, modern voice actors and Western voice actors, but I still don't know how he managed to pull off sounding like legit like 14-year-old. Like I know he was an adult when he recorded this years ago, but yeah, was really good.
The man's got range. He certainly got more range than James. I'm gonna call him Max. He's Max.
I can only ever hear Max Goof.
He's Max Goof, and what's worse is I think he is like 90% of the white background characters in this.
Wait, his name is not James Marsden, right? Because that's the actor from Buffy. There's no way.
Hang on.
That's not the same man.
Yeah, his name is James Marsden. Jason Marsden.
Jason Marsden. Okay. Because I was like, James Marsden is different.
Yeah, James Marsden's the Sonic guy.
Okay. Oh, so he's not from Buffy. He's the Sonic guy. I knew he was a different actor, though. Regardless, Jason Marsden is Max. And I always I hear him and I just say, Max?
You're thinking of James Marsters.
Oh, James Marsters.
Everyone has a similar name.
That's crazy.
I do want to say, though, in the Africa episode where, it was a fun episode, and, all that stuff, is the spider a comic character or was that something that was created for the show?
I forget. I'm going to need to look that up real quick.
Because nothing for nothing, the spider was a cool character and it was a good inspiration. And maybe they didn't have the rights to do this, but when they had the superhero appear on the train, I was waiting for Black Panther. I was like, that would have been perfect.
Okay, can we bring up the fact that Marvel Comics are a thing in this universe? Because he specifically did bring up a web blast and make the Spider-Man sign.
Hit him with a web blast!
I am not that kind of spider.
So it's official that Marvel Comics are comic books in the DC universe. And I think to some degree, DC Comics are comic books in the Marvel universe. Because I think some Marvel properties have brought up the idea of Batman.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think they are just media in each other's worlds.
Yeah.
Actually, why would I say Black Panther? Black Panther's Marvel. What am I saying? I'm stupid.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. I do think Anansi shows up in the comics, at least eventually, because the creator of Static, I believe also, all the creators are also working to some degree on the show. I want to say, at the very least, Dwayne McDuffie, who is one of his creators and one of the founders for Milestone Comics, that was the label that Static first premiered under. He was one of the writers for the show. Dwayne McDuffie and Dennis Cohen were involved. So yeah, I do like that element of like this was and I guess it's interesting because it's like this is a newer character. You actually could have the original creators involved because like for Batman and Superman, man, those creators have been dead for a while by the time those show came out. Yeah. So you couldn't do much,
and also the controversy of what's his name being kind of jolted out of credit for Batman for years.
Bill Finger, he was also dead.
Yeah.
So it's kind of the same thing. But I do like that at least in this iteration, creators of a character were getting credit and being involved in the creation of this show, which I got to talk about Black Lightning for a minute. If everyone's cool with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Black Lightning is the first DC superhero who was black. And there's a bit of a history, if you're not aware, of black superheroes having electric powers. There is a larger number of them than you would think. And part of that is because of Black Lightning and some BS that happened to the creator.
Oh.
First off, there's people who know more about the subject and have done better than me. I'm kind of quoting from look up. Well, I'll include it in the description. There was a video by Mixed Up Media, kind of went into a lot of the nitty gritty of it, but essentially, Black Lightning was created by a man named Tony Isabella, and along with Trevor Von Eden, created as the first black superhero for DC Comics in 1977. And at that time, not a whole lot of like Lightning stuff out there. Storm had come out a few years beforehand, and there was like Captain Marvel and some other throwaway electric powered people. But yeah.
Wait, Captain Marvel. I thought that was
Captain Marvel as in Shazam. That's his original name, and then there was a whole rights issue whenever Captain Marvel from Marvel comes. It's a whole fucking thing. I'll call him Shazam.
I forgot about the Wizard. I forgot about the Wizard before Billy Batson.
So yeah, Black Lightning, popular, good character, and then 1973 they make Hanna-Barbera makes the Super Friends. Did not last very long, about 16 episodes. Gets revived in the 80s as the new Super Friends Hour, something along those lines. And they wanted to expand the cast because, let's be real, it was mostly white dudes. And inclusivity became a little bit more important in the 80s. So they were going to include some, honestly, side characters that were kind of just there. They were token characters. And one of them was going to be Black Lightning. But they didn't want to pay royalties to Tony Isabella.
Aww.
So they essentially took the character, a black guy with electric powers and a blue and yellow costume, and just called him Black Vulcan.
Oh my god.
Tony Isabella did not know about this until the first episode premiered. And he was pissed and left DC because they let it happen.
Damn.
What's worse?
Did he think that he wasn't going to be?
He thought he was going to get paid. He thought Black Lightning was going to be in the show, and he was going to get paid for it in that. And they were like, "No, we just essentially took your character, gave it a different name, and did that."
That's such BS.
Oh, it is. It is. Then, weirdly enough,
and I've never even heard of that guy that they made up.
Black Vulcan. Yeah, he only shows up in Super Friends. He's occasionally made fun of in some other stuff, but that's about it because he is a copy of the real character. But wait, there's more. Because both this show and Justice League also have Black Lightning knockoffs.
Oh.
Justice League had an episode with, I think they were called the Ultimen. They were a group of superheroes who were essentially based on the tertiary characters from the Super Friends, like the Wonder Twins and Black Lightning and Apache Chief and characters like that. Except this time around, I think they changed all their names technically because they kind of had to or whatever. But this one, again, black character, electric powers, blue and black, or blue and yellow costume, and they call him Juice.
Okay.
And then in Static, there is, I think it's an episode where Static's talking about there was also another character or another superhero who had electric powers back in the 70s who was a black man with electric powers, and he essentially looks like the original version of Black Lightning, but he's called Soul Power.
So are they doing that because they can't use Black Lightning because the guy left?
There's a little bit of debate at that point, but DC still owns Black Lightning, so that doesn't really matter. But from that point on, and especially in the comics, there's a number of times now where it's become a joke that it's another black character with lightning powers. So
I'll be completely honest, I didn't know any of them. I knew Black Lightning and I knew Static, and that was it. I thought that would be it. I guess I was wrong.
Yeah. To be fair, a number of these are Black Lightning. We're just not willing to pay Tony Isabella. It's essentially the situation. And then other ones are like, no, this is an original character, but we are going to poke fun at the fact that this has happened so many times. And it might be the joke that, at least in the comics, the joke has perpetuated the actual element of, there are a large number of black characters with lightning powers for some reason. I will say that in recent years, through both the actual TV show that he got and in his prominent role in the later seasons of Young Justice, Black Lightning has gotten a lot more recognition today than he has in the past. So I'm happy about it because he is a good character. But yeah, just wanted to kind of go off there. Because one of the things that came up when this came out was some people were like, oh, Static, is he just a knockoff of Black Lightning? Okay, you do have a black character with lightning powers and a blue and yellow color scheme for your costume, but they're actually very different as far as actual characterization goes.
It feels that way a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Well, and I don't know much about Black Lightning, but are are his electric powers like Static's, or is it just mainly traditional lightning?
He can absorb and discharge electricity and manipulate some level of it.
So he's not like Static, where he's basically like a basic electric god at a lot of points.
I'm sure there's versions that are like his most powerful. Like every comic with different writers, and over the years, you're going to see different levels of power with different stuff. So I'm sure there's a version of Black Lightning that is all powerful on some level. But you see that with almost every character at some point in time. Go look through Death Battle on YouTube for if you want to see the most powerful versions of every single character.
Yeah, I know. I've seen it.
Yeah, so no, fundamentally as people, they are very different characters, and if nothing for nothing, and he's kind of based on the Static, is a lot more like Peter Parker than Jeff Pierce, Black Lightning.
Yeah.
So
well, there's also different versions of Peter Parker, because honestly, I don't know if you guys got this vibe, but it almost felt like Ultimate Spider-Man in a way, like the vibe of the world and the vibe of the villains and the vibe of just the tone in general.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Miles Morales did take some inspiration from this, because Miles didn't show up in the comics until 2011.
When did Ultimate Spider-Man come out? Was that the 2000s?
That was part of the Ultimate Universe. He first appears in Ultimate Fallout number 4.
Okay. I never know when comics take place. I know about the Ultimate version because I did play the video game on the PlayStation 2 as a kid, but that's about it. Like, I know the Ultimate Spider-Man is the one where Peter dies and Miles takes over, but that's all I really know.
That whole I never know when comics are, that is by design, my guy. They want them to last for a while, so it's like, oh, this was in 20XX. Like, we don't... you kind of want your stories to be evergreen as much as you can. There's always going to be like the whole element of anachronistic technology type stuff. So, people with a flip phone those comics might look a little bit more dated. But yeah, the setting your comics in a nebulous present is always kind of the idea.
Okay, Ultimate Spider-Man came out the same year as Static Shock, so I was almost right.
So wait, I'm sorry. Comic book Static Shock or
the Static Shock, the show.
So in 2000?
Yeah, I just looked it up.
Okay, so that has to be
Spider-Man.
Ultimate Peter Parker. Because again, Miles Morales didn't show up until 11 years later.
Yeah.
Because I know...
Wait, are there two different Ultimate Spider-Man
There's an
shows?
Ultimate Universe. So I know it was because people were saying, like, they were going to have a reboot. It was after the Sam Raimi films were canceled, and they were talking about rebooting Spider-Man with, like, Amazing Spider-Man, and there were a lot of people who were like, Donald Glover would make an amazing Spider-Man. And then some people in the comics were like, yeah, he would. What if we based a version of Spider-Man off of Donald Glover, and that's how we got Miles Morales?
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Beginning the first episode of Community Season 2, everybody's like waking up, getting ready for class. He's wearing a Spider-Man shirt specifically because everyone was like, you should be Spider-Man. He's like, I don't disagree.
And that's why they gave him the cameo in Spider-Man Homecoming. Because basically as a nod to that.
Yeah. Honestly, yeah. He would have made a good one.
Yeah, true.
I mean, technically, he's the Prowler in that MCU universe, but I don't know if they're actually going to use the Prowler unless they bring in Miles Morales, because that's kind of pointless if you.
I don't know. It's
Prowler for Peter Parker.
I feel like there's more issues going on in the MCU right now than they're willing to go into at this point.
Well, no, I'm just saying, like, when I think of Prowler, I think of Miles Morales because of the, that's his uncle. So, like,
I mean, he was Prowler in Spider-Verse 2. He did have the cameo there.
Well, I mean, it was more than a cameo. It was. Oh, you're talking about the Donald Glover version. Yeah. That was just a joke. Yeah.
But yeah, so Static. Let's get. Sorry, we tangent. We got a tangent every now and then to talk about comics. We're talking about comic books.
You're the one that started it with the Black Lightning discussion.
It kind of needed to be brought up a little bit because it's even in here was part of the. Yeah, we don't give Black Lightning credit. Yeah, which one do you guys feel like was your favorite amongst these episodes?
There were a lot of good ones.
Like, at least for me, I'm always going to have a soft spot anytime the Joker shows up. It's very fun, but I think, weirdly enough, the best episode for me was probably Frozen Out with the homeless girl, because, like, I gotta be real with you. It got me a little misty-eyed for a minute. It was like, this is so sad.
Yeah. It's tough. I mean, if you told me to pick one, maybe the racism episode, but they were all really good.
Yeah, I'm trying to think, because I did like them all. I don't think there was one that I didn't enjoy. I'm trying to think if I'm missing any, though. It's hard.
Would you want me to go over them again?
Say that again for me.
Shock to the System is the first episode where he gets his powers. Sons of the Fathers, where Richie's dad's a racist. Bent Out of Shape, which is Rubber Band Man comes after Static for exposing him as a convict who's escaped. Big Leagues has Batman. Frozen Out, which is the homeless episode. Bad Stretch, which is where Rubber Band Man redeems himself and starts becoming a hero. Static in Africa with Anansi the Spider. And Flashback with going back in time to try to save his mom.
I'm not sure I can pick one. I did really like the one with the homeless girl as well, but I also liked the one where the guy is redeeming himself. Rubber Band Man. I thought that was really good too. And I liked the one with the mom. Aside from what they did with Richie, I liked the message and everything with the one with his mom about not being able to change the past and everything. And
the ending scene with him and his mom, that was really emotional. Yeah. That was really good.
I liked that.
I'm thinking a little bit about the ending scene where they're discussing how the person who gave them the time travel option went back in time to stop themselves from having time. Even they're being like, hey man, just don't think about it. We're alive and the universe hasn't imploded. Let's not worry about it.
They should not have remembered anything that happened.
No, because essentially none of it ever happened.
Right. So that was a little confusing, but it didn't ruin the episode for me. I still thought the episode was really good.
Yeah. I will say it's not the only time that sort of paradoxical thing has happened in this series of shows.
Yeah.
There's a later Justice League episode that includes fucking with time, and at the end of it, only 2 people remember it. And they're like, but how do we remember? Because we do.
Yeah, like how?
I mean, time travel is never done 100% well. And even Back to the Future, which I love that trilogy, if you stop to think about all the stuff they do with time travel in that trilogy, you'll probably lose brain cells.
I mean, to some degree, it's multiverse theory, but it's weird to think that the present timeline only takes place in about 12 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I do also like in the show, too, before we go into our final thoughts, I do love the good relationship Static has with the whole community. The whole police and fire department, they seem to trust them fully, and they have a good working relationship. I thought that was really refreshing because, I mean, obviously Batman is a divisive figure to say the least. Superman, he's got mostly public support, but there's the threat of, oh, he's an alien, why can we fully trust him? And then Terry, well, he's another Batman. He's a teenage Batman, so yeah.
I think again it kind of goes from the Spider-Man element of Static is meant to be a reinterpretation.
Friendly neighborhood Spider-Man.
Yeah, exactly. I think this is the most personable character that we followed this month as far as these shows go. Batman and Terry, Bruce and Terry are both kind of, when they're Batman, they're it's business time. We're not gonna Terry's a little nicer, but and then Superman I think is very much I am trying to be the best that I could be. And Static's very easygoing, and he's easy to talk to. And I think that's one of the number one things that makes him just so likable. But again, it kind of comes back to the Spider-Man thing of he is meant to be a sort of version of Spider-Man in some way. And Spider-Man, number one, there's only one person in New York who hates Spider-Man. I'm trying to think. I'm sure it would have been too obvious had they given him a J. Jonah Jameson in the show, but
yeah.
I'm sure there's a number of people other than villains who don't like Static, but yeah, he's always just being a good guy and helping out. What more do you want?
Yeah.
I'm trying to think if there's anything else to talk about. I mean, we mentioned a little bit Phil Lamar and James Marsden for their voice roles, which they did really good, but I feel the whole cast also did really well across the board with a lot of the other people. Yeah. Even for people who were only there for an episode, I'm going to bring up again Frozen Out, Hynden Walsh, who we know as Starfire from Teen Titans.
Oh, that was her.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I did not recognize that.
It was a really good emotional performance, really worked well. I'm trying to think, like, as far as we should mention Kevin Michael Richardson as Robert.
Yeah, the dad.
And I think he's also Onyx, who was there in an episode. But,
if you want to talk about a filmography, just look up his filmography.
Oh, yeah.
He's like in a bunch of your childhood shows.
Yeah.
And it's funny because Jason Marsden was like every white side character in the show.
That's what I said. It's it's weird how much we're hearing. Like, okay, nothing for nothing. In like Justice League, Phil Lamar is a lot of the background voices because I mean, you have 7 main characters. A lot of them are doing double duty as also being background characters for like extras, little bits and bobs. Phil Lamar I notice it because I notice these things, but I feel like most people probably wouldn't notice most of these characters.
I don't think Max can change it as well.
It is such a bad comparison because Phil Lamar has so much range. Max does not have a lot of range. That's why we keep saying that he's Max. But he's half the background characters in the show.
It's like David Kaufman the last couple of weeks or in the past with he's Danny Phantom. Like that was the first show I've seen him in, and he uses the same voice. And again, it's not like he's doing a bad job, but like he's doing the same voice. So like the show that you know the most, you're gonna connect to.
He's trying to change it up a little bit, but like his range is not Phil Lamar's range. Honestly, they had other people playing the other like villains and background, like not background characters, but like supporting cast. I kind of think maybe they should have like extended them into the extras a little bit more. Other than that, voice cast all did really, really well. Art style, I like. It's again kind of like the Superman thing, where it was like a little more bright and colorful, but also very felt like it was its own vibe. Yeah. It fits in the universe without feeling like it's conform. I feel like each of these shows has their own visual style to them that works perfectly for them, while still it feels both cohesive to the whole of the DC animated universe, while still feeling individual to each of them, which I think is an accomplishment. But yeah. Any other things to talk about here before we head out?
I don't really got anything.
Yeah. All right. Final thoughts. This has to be a yay. This is just such a strong show from a character standpoint, from a story standpoint. All of it's great. Yeah, and nothing for nothing, probably the most fun protagonist that we've had so far. So, I mean, and I love a jokey, fun protagonist. So this is fantastic. Go check it out. It's a yay.
Yeah, this is a yay for me too. I really enjoyed it. Sad that I didn't watch it as a kid, but happy that I've watched it now. It was really good. Definite yay for me.
Yeah, it's a yay for me. I mean, all of these shows have been great, and it just really goes to show that, you know, maybe they had the intention of building a connected universe with connected shows at the beginning, or maybe it just came naturally. But it's it's just like, you know, minus one blemish that all their shows in this universe were a success.
Yeah. Funny enough, they did not intend it originally. And I will say that Static was never meant to be part from the comic book version, and this TV show were never meant to be part of the extended DC universe. Yeah, that was a thing. As I'm going to bring up briefly the comics, Milestone Comics was a comic imprint that was designed to be sort of like what Image Comics was like the creators would own the characters and all that sort of stuff, but they wanted it to be a primarily Black-owned business. And comic book, essentially they wanted that so that the creators could create the characters that they wanted to see and write the stories that they wanted to write without like a larger editor and publishing company like DC or Marvel kind of maybe stifling that a little bit. And that was going to be the big thing, that Milestone Comics was be its entire own universe, even though it was technically distributed by DC Comics. So it was kind of like, we'll work with you, but we are our own thing and we are our own stories, and we're not going to like, Static, the show, was also meant to be that, but then they later decided, you know, along with the comics, I don't know if it was happening at the exact same time, but eventually Static was folded into the DC universe, And the show was also folded in with the rest of the DC animated universe, which included the Batman cameo and eventually their Justice League crossover that they had in later seasons. So yeah, didn't start that way, but ended that way, and ended in a really great way. Because like Nothing for Nothing, we also get to see the future version of Static Shock in Justice League. And he's pretty cool. Like Nothing for Nothing.
Yeah.
He somehow survives 50 years all the way until like Batman's also old and they're fighting time traveling villains and stuff. I would like to see some of that, but we only get like one or two episodes of it. But
okay, well you figure he's 14 at the start of the show, and Bruce,
he's 64.
Maybe said he's like in his he's like in his 30s, like at like probably in this point in the timeline where he's in Static. So
50 years in the future, Static 64, and Bruce is pushing 80.
Yeah, so hey, my dad's 64. He still does a lot of shit around the house. So.
Yes, but does he have electric powers?
No, but he can do the Italian hex to try and jinx people in a football game.
Does it work?
It has worked in the past.
But does it work consistently enough?
No.
Okay. Well, next week we're finishing out the month of December and the year as a whole, so we might as well finish it out with the thing that finished the entire DC animated universe up to this point. The show Justice League. And we'll also include an episode or two from Justice League Unlimited, because why the fuck not? Like, I like these. This is coming up, like Batman the Animated Series and Justice League were two of my favorite shows of all time. And I gotta include
it's kind of fitting that Batman, it's essentially its fourth season was the new Batman Adventures that expanded the world out, and then Justice League, its third season was essentially Justice League Unlimited that really expanded the universe with every DC character you could think of.
Oh yeah, we're definitely gonna cover that next week. I think I got some good episodes picked out, so we're gonna be watching those and taking a look at all of that and just wrapping up the year, and then we'll let you know what we're gonna be doing next year. And yeah, find out then. We'll see you guys. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Hey, thanks for watching, and if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe and ring the bell icon for notifications. If you enjoyed this video, give us a like, and if you haven't already, check out some of our previous episodes, our daily gaming videos, or our parody series Madoka Magically Abridged. See you next time!